All right, we're going to start in just a few minutes. Let everybody join. Thank you for everyone for taking the time.
Also see a lot of familiar names and faces. I love it. Hello, you know who you are. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, I see more folks joining in. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you all are excited for knowledge. I I think many of you will be there. Definitely stop by our booth in knowledge. Ken and I are really excited to tell you a little bit about Echelon, about how some of our customers are operating ServiceNow with AI agents, and we'll focus the majority of the time of this demo, of this call on a live demo, so that Ken can walk you guys through exactly how Echelon works, what Echelon can do, and how platform teams are leveraging Echelon to get more work done on the platform. We'll also include a sign up link at the end, and happy to see you folks trying Echelon out. And I see we have 17 people. So let's maybe give it another minute and we will get started. Feel free to send all your questions in the chat, and at the end we'll be taking some of the questions and have them answered. If we don't get enough time, we'll make sure to email our answer to you. And this session is recorded, so feel free to share with your team, with your peers, with your friends. Just curious, how many folks on the call are from a platform team and from a partner, ServiceNow partner? Feel free to type in your answer on the chat. And also I'm curious to learn, hey, how have you guys roll out AI within your organization, in your day-to-day work? Great. I see 20 people. Let's get started. Awesome. We'll start with a quick intro. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join today's session. My name's Eddie, one of the co-founders at Echelon. I lead the AI team here. My ServiceNow journey really started from Moveworks, which, as many of you guys know, was acquired by ServiceNow last year for $3 billion. I used to lead the AI team at Moveworks and build a lot of the core agentic AI capabilities at Moveworks. Today, I'm joined by Ken. I'll let Ken maybe briefly introduce himself as well.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Ken here, head of delivery and certified master architect. I've been in the ServiceNow space for over 10 years, and I help lead the team here that trains and evaluates Echelon and help deliver solutions for our customers using Echelon. Oh, Eddie, you're on mute.
Here's the agenda for today. We're gonna focus the majority of the time to show you guys a live demo of what Echelon can do. But before that, just to set some context for everybody, what is Echelon? And also some of the sort of paradigm shift we've been seeing about, hey, how are platform teams operating their ServiceNow platform with AI agents? We're going to touch base on that briefly as well. And then I'll hand it to Ken for a live demo of the platform. And feel free to comment. We want to make this as engaging as possible. We'd love to hear what questions you might have, what use cases you might have. Awesome. So we're Echelon. We build the new agentic AI workforce for ServiceNow, right? So at Echelon, uh, our AI agent is purposely built for the full ServiceNow delivery lifecycle, going from a requirement, going from a natural language, going from understanding the architecture of the instance and understanding the best practices of ServiceNow, and simply just assign work to Echelon, let Echelon help you, work with you to design a solution, refine the story, assign the work to Echelon, let Echelon build it out, generate the test cases and the documentation. So Echelon handles the entire end-to-end delivery on your ServiceNow platform. And Echelon is trained by our best of the best in-house CMAs like Ken and also CTAs. And everything Echelon does is grounded in the ServiceNow's best practices and your unique ServiceNow architecture over the past how many years you've developed your ServiceNow instance. So that is a little bit about Echelon. Specifically, since we started Echelon over the past year, we've seen really the role of the platform team is changing very quickly, right? In the past, folks on the platform teams, the BPC, the developers, the architects are doing a lot of things manually, right? Building things, building catalogs manually, writing code manually, right? Generating ATF test cases. It's very, very underutilized and spending a lot of their time debugging on the day-to-day operations to keep the platform up running. And they don't have enough time to work with the stakeholders, understanding the strategy of the platform. And with Echelon, we're seeing really there's a big shift on what the platform team is doing. They're moving closer and closer to the business. They're focusing more on rolling out the ServiceNow platform to more and more departments, right? This includes, hey, what is our quarterly roadmap with HR and finance? What are the next things we should focus on getting rid from our backlog? Focus on the architecture, focus on cleaning tech debts. This all is possible because a lot of the heavy lifting, a lot of the manual configurations, the context switching is now shifted to just assign the work to Echelon. Just work with Echelon and multitasking, do 5 to 10 things at a time, right? As a result, we're seeing a significant time reduction in terms of project delivery timeline. Also, teams can now get so much more work done, usually at a 3 to 4x number of more story points completed at each sprint. And now would love to show you guys a live demo, right? Let you guys see, hey, this is the Echelon experience. How would the platform team do their work with Echelon, right? Simply just describe what you want to do, right? It could be a troubleshooting, it could be getting a quick answer to build something end-to-end with test coverage, troubleshoot something, design a solution. And let us see Echelon live. And now I'm gonna hand it to Ken. And you're muted.
Let me know when you guys can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so hi everyone. So for today's demo, I think everyone has kind of seen Echelon build a catalog item, build a flow, build an ATF within 2 hours. That was something that we first targeted, mid 2025, and tons and tons of videos out there. So I'm not going to do that. So that was 2025 Echelon, right? We kind of automated that sort of work so that people don't have to build these things by hand today. Q1 of 2026, this year, customers are beginning to use Echelon to help them build playbooks. that are calling subflows. And within those subflows, they're leveraging REST connections to interact with external systems. And so customers have already been doing that earlier this year. And so I think, through many sort of posts and demos that you've seen on LinkedIn and different sources, we were able to see how Echelon can really handle all sorts of configuration throughout many different parts of the platform, right? So we've gone past IRM, CSM, HRSD, and all those sort of, standard vanilla modules. Today, what I wanted to show you is how our current Echelon customers are using it in the most innovative way. And so how they've really embedded Echelon into their workflow, into their day-to-day to really accelerate how they do things week by week, day by day. So I know we have a couple of first-time users. So if it's your first time seeing Echelon, let me give you a quick little rundown, and then I'll quickly jump into the main meat of the demo. So Echelon sits outside of the ServiceNow instance. We can point to multiple instances, right? So maybe you're doing some development work on dev, maybe you're writing some ATF on your test instance, right? So Echelon can kind of do work in multiple instances. Echelon can really help you with any part of that development lifecycle, right? So you could have a simple question, you could maybe designing and planning a custom application, so it's much more comprehensive. And of course, we even have these curated workflows. We have a lot of customers doing a lot of repetitive work when it comes to making sure their update sets are up to snuff before promoting it to test. Maybe they're going through a legacy workflow to flow migration. And so we have these curated workflows that really accelerate the way that developers and business analysts are interacting with Echelon, especially when it comes to these very repetitive tasks. So that was the quick little view. So let me jump to something that we're all familiar with. If you're a developer, your day kind of starts here, right? You're reviewing a story that's maybe assigned to your queue. And what do we typically do as a developer or maybe an architect when we review a story? We analyze it. Maybe if I'm not very familiar with HRSD and its ability to upload resumes, maybe I start doing some Googling, right? I start to identify and find if there's something out of the box. Maybe I reach out to my architect. Maybe I need to jump on a call with a business. And so sometimes, this story is pretty generic, and sometimes it could take half a day before I even start my first update set, right? So that's a lot of time just doing researching and analyzing things, the traditional way. So let me show you what our customers are doing today. So instead of assigning this to myself, I'm going to assign it to Echelon. And we have some customers that are working within Jira and Asana, and we have integrations to those systems as well. And so this example is just showing it from the ServiceNow Agile management tool. All right, so you see I just assigned the story. Echelon's already beginning to solution for the story. So let's go ahead and open this up and see what it's doing. As it's humming away, I'll kind of show you what you guys are seeing on the screen. Again, I know we have some first-time users. Right now, we're just kind of working on one task, but you can see in my morning, I was really busy, right? Asking Echelon a multitude of questions, ranging from various different topics. I think something that we often hear as a bottleneck with current customers is trying to find expert level information on any topic, right? So sometimes I have a question about SecOps, and now I need to find someone that's really good at SecOps. And sometimes I have a question later in the day about HRSD, and now I kind of got to find the person that's really good at HRSD. All of that takes time, booking meetings. But imagine you had an expert in every domain at your fingertips. And so that's kind of what you see here, right? I was just firing off all these questions, making decisions, finding answers throughout my morning because I have a CMA that's been certified in every single domain under ServiceNow at my fingertips. So as Echelon is kind of thinking through this, we can kind of see what Echelon's doing, right? So full transparency. So you can see Echelon understands that my instance is on Zurich. So it's looking up some Zurich product documentation. It's beginning to look at tables within my instance to do what we call, a discovery process, right? So a current state analysis of what we have going on in our instance, and only then will it be able to get back to us with a solid answer. Over here on the right-hand side, this is just a collection of artifacts of everything that Echelon's been doing, right? So within a minute, 2 minutes, we can see Echelon had kind of scoured all through the product docs. We also are also looking through the best practice portal that ServiceNow has as well, and other sort of authoritative sources, right? We make sure that, and we spend a lot of time making sure that Echelon's only looking in areas that have been certified, authorized, and published by valid sources, and it's not just getting its information from the World Wide Web. Here it's looking at the HR profile table, looking at all the fields that have come into existence, right? So I think a very common question is, hey, how does it handle customizations on my instance? I got custom fields, custom tables. Because Echelon's doing this analytical deep dive before coming back to me with an answer, it'll be able to pick all of that up, right? And take that into account in its response to me. Should be finished wrapping up shortly. All right, cool. Let's see what it got back to us with. All right, so looks like it's giving us 3 recommendations, 3 vial approaches. Looks like it did some research, didn't find anything related to resumes on the profile table. Okay. And it also looked into some security settings, right? And I think that might have come from like a very small statement within the story, making sure that only authorized people can see the resumes after they've been uploaded. So let's take a look at the options, right, and see which one looks good. So we got option 1, where we are building out an HR catalog item, a record producer. The out-of-the-box level for this is high. So we're creating something lightweight. It's a record producer that sits on the employee center. On submission, the flow will pick up the attachment and attach it to the HR profile record. Sounds standard, pretty streamlined, straightforward, right? Calling else kind of the pros and the cons to this one solution. Let's take a look at option number 2. So this one's proposing that we build a custom service portal widget. All right, so we're adding a new widget to the profile page. And the widget's going to use as much as native platform capabilities as we can, right? So we have something that we might be able to leverage in order to upload attachments from the portal. Again, calling out some various aspects, right? Comparing this and contrasting this to the first option that it suggested. This one has maybe a better user experience, a lot more native rather than a user submitting something through the catalog item. The cons is maybe, this requires a custom widget. Some custom code needs to happen. Okay. And then we have, let's take a look at the third option, which is an HR portal widget extending an existing widget, right? So kind of an option that's in the medium. So we're extending or cloning this existing widget, right? And so what we're looking at right now, and I chose the specific story for a reason, is because it's kind of non-standard, right? This isn't something that you could just Google on the internet. It requires a little bit of creativity, while still aligning to best practices. And just like everything within ServiceNow, there are multiple ways to go about it. And I'm hoping that you guys are getting a sense of how Echelon thinks as well, right? Exactly like an architect would, right? Many ways to slice the cat. And, we need to, as the drivers of Echelon, we're the ultimate decisions maker to determine what works best for our business and for our use case. So I love making our demos interactive. None of this is scripted. So I'd love to ask the audience, which of these would you like us to go out and build today? So we got option 1 as the record producer. We got option 2, building a new widget. And then option 3 is extending from an existing widget. And I can't see the chat, so if Mima and Eddie can help me out.
Yeah, option 2.
Yeah.
I see Brian, Julie both said option 2. Miguel as well. Option 2.
Option 2. All right. I would say great minds think alike. I was kind of leaning more towards that as well. And I'd love to understand what's going on in your minds. Like, why did you guys choose option 2? And were Echelon's reasons for option 2 align to what you guys were thinking? All right. So as a user, you saw how within a matter of minutes, we were able to dissect this pretty vague requirement. We even had time to evaluate multiple options. As a user, as the one driving Echelon, I was able to quickly see the pros and cons of each of those options. And now I'm saying, hey, let's go forth and build this out. So let's give this a couple of minutes, right? What it's doing right now, it's doing the solution, right? And we'll get back to reviewing the solution in just a bit. I want to kind of go off to our next demo. Next thing that I wanted to show you guys today in the few minutes that I have is something that we're noticing from customers, right? So, we started off from a very familiar place, a story. But even getting to here took time, right? So imagine, the business had to talk to someone on your ServiceNow team to say like, hey, I have this vision, I have this idea. And then a BA had to have a meeting with them, generate these notes. That BA probably had to sit with a developer and architect to be like, hey, is this even possible? And then, days and weeks go by, and then finally we have a story. And then finally a developer gets assigned to it. So that's a whole lot of time that's being sent just to get to the point where someone with the right skill set to build it. And we've been talking with a lot of customers, and what we've been learning is that a lot of the work, the decisions that get made, a lot of the context, it comes before a story even gets created. It comes from a Slack message, a Teams message, right? Someone pings another person from ServiceNow, they ideate, they solution, they jump on a meeting and they collaborate. And at that point, there's often enough information where we can kind of get started and start doing the work, right? Building a story, creating a story, finding someone to help us draft this, that's a friction point that we're seeing again and again. And I'm hoping you guys are resonating with this as well. So let me jump over to my teams. And lo and behold, Eddie's telling me that, hey, ServiceNow team, looks like there's a few people reporting some performance issues this morning. Can I take a look? And so I'll kind of pause right here and maybe ask the audience, right? If you were maybe an architect or maybe if you were sitting on the level 1 help desk, what would you do at this point after seeing this message? Probably start either messaging someone who's responsible for performance because, you take care of architecture stuff, right? And you need to find the right person first. Or maybe you are the right person, right? And you're like, okay, I'm going to start looking at logs. But there's many different places, scheduled jobs, long running business rules, flows. You can get into the nitty gritty and looking at like semaphores and databases and all of that stuff. So a lot of different places. And you got to look at each of those tables individually. And if you're really good, you would have had a dashboard set up for you. But I find very few customers have those set up. So, me not knowing too much about ServiceNow, what if I just asked Echelon? Hey, Echelon, let me type this out. Give me a rich report dashboard that contains links and prioritizes troubleshooting steps or areas to look at. Yes, this is live. Start with the past 3 days. Look at things like scheduled jobs, mid-server issues, or other logs you would recommend. Maybe some CMDB discovery logs. I'll throw like random stuff in there. Also call out, maybe apps that we need to update and anything else you would like to suggest. With the advent of AI, yes, my typing has severely gotten worse, but that's okay. We're living in 2026 where we don't need to type properly anymore. Cool. All right. This is pretty neat. I just tagged Echelon as if I was just tagging someone. And, literally within a minute, he's saying, let me check. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So let's take a look at see what Echelon suggests there. Let me cut back to the first demo because I'm sure you guys all want to go back and see how that widget's turning out. So let me go to here. Almost there. I know there's a lot of pausing and waiting happening, but if you think about how much time it would take you to come up with a pretty detailed design of how you would approach this solution, yeah, probably take longer than 6 minutes. But let me kind of like go through the more stuff. So, from this example, we chose to invest in this option. Let's proceed. And Echelon's going even deeper into the innards of your ServiceNow platform. Understands where your ServiceNow service portal is, understands the pages, is looking at existing development patterns, right? So any sort of widgets that you've developed in the past, any sort of best practices or documentation standards that you've told Echelon in the past, it's going to align to all of that, right? So it's never building a widget as if it was a new contractor coming into your platform on that very first day. The first day that Echelon is onboarded onto your instance, it's going to work like as if it was always been there because it's able to pick up on all of these design patterns. Okay. You also notice like a neat little thing here, and if we have enough time, I'd love to show this, but it's actually logging into your ServiceNow instance and taking screenshots, right? Because it's one thing, especially when we're talking about enhancement that requires a service portal. It's one thing to look at XMLs and records and that sort of stuff, but to really get true understanding, we need to look at the browser. So I think I'm running out of time, but let me cut to something that I built out slightly earlier. So in this example, I think, and if that example finishes, I'll get back. I just want to make sure I give you guys the nitty gritty. So yeah, this is what I was talking about. Did a whole bunch of examining your current state instance. Here's kind of the screenshot that it does, right? So Echelon literally goes in and sees like, hey, you wanted me to put this widget on the profile table? Well, or sorry, the profile service portal page. What does that profile page look like? And so it's looking at it, and it's going to take that into account into its design. Exactly like a human would, right? What it ends up generating is what we call a design document. So think of something that your most senior technical consultant architect, spent days and days perfecting this perfect design document for you to approve. It thinks about everything, right? Ensures that it maps every single acceptance criteria that is found under the story with a very well-built, validated solution, right? So if it says it's going to place a custom widget, it's going to make sure that every input or output to that widget has been thought through, gives you an architecture diagram, and just like a human would, it's going to build it out in phases, right? So first, it's going to build out the custom widget, server-side script, HTML template, client-side logic, all of that good stuff. Something that I wouldn't be able to do. Then it's going to place that widget to where it needs to be, right? In order for it to do that properly, it needs to go deep, right? It needs to go the exact container, the exact row, the exact column. And then finally, right, when we're uploading resumes pertaining to users and, that's sensitive information, let's lock it up with something, make sure it's restricted via, in this case, it's proposing that we use ACL. And so I can maybe, let me make sure that, I'm going to make sure that let's proceed. Let's proceed with building the widget. Okay. And so the other thing is, if Echelon recommended something that I don't like, I can change it, right? So again, you're always in the driver's seat, full steerability into whatever Echelon's designing, right? If I didn't want to protect this via ACL, I wanted to use something else to restrict that attachment, I could. I'll let that run. Let me jump to our second use case there, which was the Teams, having Echelon chat with us through Teams. So just like how in the main app, if I give it a requirement, Echelon's going to ask me questions. It's able to do that exactly in Teams as well, right? And so over here, it's asking me for approval to check some app versions. So let me go ahead and do that. So what we have here is pretty much, for those, I see some familiar faces. So for those customers that are already using Echelon, we pretty much have full parity with using the main app and having Echelon within Teams, right? So things like these approval cards, being able to render scripts so that you have the information you need to make approvals or make changes. So, if it's not something that you have set up already, happy to help you guys. And for those who are new to this, I'm hoping that we're sparking some ideas, right? Because I think many of us are always on Teams, are always on Slack, talking with the business, right? Really thinking about and ideating through really cool stuff. And it'd be nice to just immediately take action or find an answer through Echelon with it within that Teams channel. Okay. And I'll show you what this looks like too. So if I open up View in Echelon, so you can see this was, exactly the prompt that I gave it through Teams, doing a whole bunch of magic stuff. This was the script that I had, approved through Teams. How are we on time, guys? Do I have like 4 minutes, or should I?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Okay. Jumping back to our first example. So I know I'm hoping I'm not too crazy jumping back and forth, but I'm literally handling two completely different issues at the same time. And so if we think about your current ServiceNow team and what they've been able to achieve with Echelon, you can really see differences in kind of the multiplications, right? We see with some customers, we see kind of those senior team members, those who are very familiar with ServiceNow and they've spent, 1 to 2 weeks with Echelon. We've really seen them 4x or even 5x their output with Echelon. And even for more of our junior team members, we've been able to see significant improvement in their outputs too, because they use Echelon as a learning tool, right? In this example, we were seeing how we were learning how there are 3 different options to implement this one story. So, I'll kind of end off this use case here where we see Echelon proposing to automatically creating an update set for us. Over here, it's picking up that, hey, we're implementing a portal, a widget within the base EC portal. So that's why it's picking up this scope. Yes, Echelon can develop in global scoped apps, apps developed by you, apps developed by third parties. Echelon can have access to all of those. And going back to full transparency and visibility into everything that Echelon's doing, every single table artifact that it's doing down to the field level, we're able to validate and see that Echelon's doing the right thing, and then we can go ahead and approve, right? So if I still have some time left, I'll show you what that update set and what that widget looks like. I'm going to try and end things off with this one over here, so we can see within, when did I respond to Echelon? It was 2:33, or sorry, 2:23. So 10 minutes time, we see Echelon responding back with this report. And let me actually just open this up in the actual app itself. It's a little bit more richer. Yeah. And so this is something really cool that we've been able to do is have Echelon produce these rich reports in real time, aligned to your corporate, standards, right? So how you want to be able to see things. So it's almost able to build like, I want to say like a mini app, but it's a dashboard. So based on what I said earlier, you can see that very quickly Echelon was able to not just look at all of these different things and tables, but then understand them, contextualize them, explain it in a way that makes sense to me, right? It would have taken me probably another, maybe you guys can give out a number, maybe 1 or 2 hours for me to figure out, hey, I think there's something going on with the flow, right? I see this flow, I see something that takes up a long amount of time, but a longer time. And so we see this prioritized list of findings that Echelon was able to figure out and then present it back to us. And so, yeah, let me kind of just end it off here. I showed you how, we spoke about how Echelon was, of course, able to handle all of those configuration tasks, playbooks, workspaces, catalog items. But now, hopefully today, you're seeing how some of our most innovative customers are using Echelon and integrating it directly within their release and build process and really changing the ways how they do work. And so, yeah, hopes this sparks some ideas. And yeah, pass it over to you, Eddie.
Amazing. Cool. I see there are a lot of great discussions happening on the chat. I'd love everybody to give Echelon a try, right? I send the link in the chat, but let me pull it up again. Here you go. It's at echelonai.com, try Echelon, or you can just scan this QR code. It's a very simple self-service setup experience. You can connect to your PDI, to your sandbox environment, and you can get all that done in just 5 minutes. The best way to see it in action is actually give it a try. We'd also love to see you at Knowledge at booth 5641. We have some fun events after each day. Feel free to RSVP. The link is on our website. I know we've been actively answering questions from the chat. I'd love to open up the floor to see if there are any other questions. We're a little bit over time, but maybe we can take a few more questions that folks might have. I think a few of you have asked if the session is recorded. Yes, we have recorded the session. We will share after this ends. Ken, if you can monitor if there are any other questions folks might have, we can also answer it here.
Yeah, I'll start answering as they go. So I think thanks, George, for sending out that question. Can you answer the question on how Echelon handles existing technical debt? Yeah, so I think I spoke about this a little bit on the demo. So every time Echelon does any sort of solutioning or answering a question, it's always going to ground its answer in what is in your instance. I think it's very much underrated when we say Echelon has access to your instance. It's not just pushing stuff, but it's understanding it. So if you are asking about your change management process, there's a process that's often very customized. It's not going to give you the textbook product doc answer. It's not going to give you the best practice answer. It's going to really look through all of the records within your instance, business rules, fields, custom, things that were changed from out of the box, and then respond back to you. We see a lot of customers using Echelon for technical debt assessments. Hey, Echelon, help me find all customizations pertaining to my IRM process. Because Echelon's so great at analyzing vast amounts of data and surfacing it very quickly, it's a huge game changer for managing and working through customizations. Next one by Austin. Any back-end configuration involved in Echelon, like modifying the acceptable documentation lookup sources? So there is a way for you as a customer to steer how Echelon works. We know that every single customer has their own set of best practices. What ServiceNow says, what what your partner might say, could and what your organization likes to do things, develop, name things, could all be very different. And so to answer your question, Austin, yes. There is a way for you to put in your own documentation standards, put in your own best practices, and Echelon will be designing and answering solutions based on that.
I see a question about is Echelon integrated with ServiceNow's license, or you need a pro license, or it's a separate license in order to use the features. So yeah, Echelon is outside of ServiceNow. We connect into ServiceNow via OAuth. So this would be you'll need a separate enterprise license to use ServiceNow. Sorry, to use Echelon. Yeah. Feel free to book a time with us. Happy to show you what that looks like. Cool. Any other questions you see, Ken, in the chats?
Have you seen this be used between an internal team and an MSP? Yeah, that's a great one. Maybe Eddie, you want to respond to that one?
So far, right, I think a lot of customers getting a lot of value are ServiceNow customers just using this to automate a lot of their day-to-day work. I'm not sure what do you mean by using in the MSP. So would be great if you can provide more context in the chat.
Maybe meaning like Echelon as an MSP?
Yeah, I think definitely a lot of the BAU type of tasks, Echelon can do it really, really well. I would love for you to give it a try, right? Sign up at Echelon, try echelonai.com and try Echelon. And you'll be able to see some Echelon's capability on some of those tasks. Awesome, cool. Thank you, everyone. As I mentioned, we've recorded this session. We'll make sure to share this with everybody. And we'll see you at Knowledge.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys at Knowledge.